Hi everyone, this is Natalie, and for my Illustrator / professional interviews, I'm doing it on the artist Chi-Kit Kwong. So Chi-Kit graduated from Columbus College of Arts and Design for his BFA and studied in University of North Carolina, Greensboro for his MFA. He had recently published a comic book, The Saga of Kunlun Mountain, a Chinese fantasy martial art tale, which I think was pretty successful, and I will be talking more about his book in the following slides. And the main reason why I'm doing an interview with him is because I think he's an artist that is good with all types of media, no matter if it's traditionally or digitally. I think he excels in all of them. And his passion is painting and inking. He's a professor and an owner of 2 cats. So these are some of his works. As you can see, some are done digitally and some are done traditionally and some are done in a mixture of both. And these are mostly the style and type that he goes for. So moving on to the interview questions. The first question that I asked him was, is it true that you co-founded a toy brand with your brother Michael Kwong? If so, what is your role in the brand? In that, Chi-Kit replied that his role was to make toys as a designer who designed original characters. He also mentioned that it wasn't a very successful experience as it was like a 2-man band, so there wasn't really a firm structure that assigns who does what and when to do what. They created and do all kinds of stuff. And business was something that they were both not really good at. So in that, he said that it was more of a small kind of created team, but not so much of a brand. As I mentioned, that he had just recently published a book, The Saga of Kunlun Mountain, which leads to my second question, that I see that he had just recently published the book. What was his biggest motivation to create a book of his own? In that, Chi-Kit replied that he had always wanted to get back to creating comics, since that was something that he was most passionate about. And he bumped into his mentor, Mac Kit, 2 years ago. And that was when he visited him in his studio and he offered to work together, as he was a pretty established local comic artist and suggested to get other artists involved, like Mr. Chang Luke, another well-known artist who did comics like Feng Yun. So Mac gathered everyone in the studio, and that lightened up Chi-Kit's passion to create again and to overcome his fear of risking to create something big. So then I asked him how long did it take him to finish the book, and in that he answered 2 years. He thought it was going to be sooner, but 2019 was a hectic year for Hong Kong, and for that, I'm not going to dive into the political issue, but it's basically about politics and the relationship between the government and people gathering together to fight for justice and what they've always hoped for. So it was a lot of commotion, and that was why he stopped for a few months to work on other projects and pick it back up a few months after. And he believed that the next book would have a faster pace in creation. And I asked him if he could disclose a little background in producing the book, and he told me that it is a self-funded project and they had a good working system running it. When they opened a Facebook page to promote, his mentor Mac already had a large fan base, which when they started to promote, a lot of people already showed interest in buying and looking at the book. It was hard as the artist was separated in different regions where they were creating, but luckily they met once before the pandemic to communicate the working structure. But throughout the whole production, they actually communicated through WhatsApp and Google Doc. So after his book was published, I really wanted to know his inspiration behind the story, like what made him come up with this whole story. And he told me that it is about a Chinese soldier man's adventure story that is based on Hong Kong's martial arts comic fan base, since it is really popular in Hong Kong, especially in the 90s. They sell so many martial arts comic books, and that he wrote it into a fantasy-like story with monsters and magic, and also added elements of social event of that year, which was 2019, the Hong Kong event. Hence, there were a lot of hidden messages here and there in his story to reflect the political issue and the people and the event. And most of all, it is also about mentor and apprentice, which was his favorite type of relationship and theme to write and draw about. And this story actually speaks so much to Hong Kong's production in the 90s, which was something that he's really into in his teenage years. Later then I asked him, apart from teaching, are there any other companies he'd worked with as an illustrator? If so, can he share them? And he said that he was a regular illustrator for a financial magazine in Beijing called Fortune Life, and he'd worked there for 3 to 5 years. He was also writing art appreciation column for Breakthrough magazine in Hong Kong. But he mostly did freelancing for advertising companies that does greeting cards, book cover, etc. And later then he said he doesn't do much freelancing now since that he started his career as a professor. And he claimed that the school was pretty demanding about his dedication towards teaching, so he had to discontinue freelancing. But he also did mention that the school was well paid enough for him to sustain life. Since he was an artist that did freelancing and also worked for big companies, I wanted to know the biggest difference between the two in terms of freedom of creativity. And that he said that if you wanted to work for companies, you don't have to be a superhero or an art celebrity like Picasso. The whole thing is to be able to listen to what people has to say and be able to work as a team and deliver your part. Basically, being a team player is what you need, especially for big companies. And as for freelancing, you would have more freedom but less stable in terms of income compared to working for a company. But it really depends on the kind of person that you are with management and time, finance, and business. He believed that freelance is more satisfying as an artist that allows all possible creation of your own. But if you want a stable income and a steady paycheck, working for big companies might just be for you. And lastly, I asked him what drives him as an artist. It's probably the only thing he's good at as a human, he said jokingly. He said being an artist is almost like an obligation and a mission for him, as he has the God-given gift, and if he wasted the talent, it would be disrespectful and a disgrace to God. The drive comes from luckiness to own the gift to draw, and he should put the talent in good use and give back. If he doesn't have the gift to draw, his life would be completely different, dull and boring, he said. So that concludes all my question. As I said, I think he's a really talented artist that excels on all sorts of media, and I think he has an interesting personality too. If you guys wanted to connect with him, you can find him on LinkedIn, and I will also put his website and book link and Instagram on my discussion board post so you guys can check this artist out or connect with him if you want. Thank you.